Okay.
Kylie.
Daniela.
Katie.
John.
Julia. So, in the first question, one of the questions is, what is the argument Borgman is making? I thought that one of the arguments he's making was that technology disengages human interaction, which kind of falls in line with his device paradigm when he observed a shift that happens in society as our tools and technology get smaller and smaller. A device is a technology that makes the end result of a process available like at the press of a button pretty much.
I also said like to understand the device paradigm you have to understand the pattern and the power that comes behind technology. So if you're going to be using technology for like order and democracy, you need to understand what type of platform you're on and how you can influence other people with it. So a technological paradigm proposes the idea of social order and why we do things in a pattern that we do it. And that can kind of relate to the workplace.
Yeah, I think also along with the device paradigm, Borgman mentioned that it almost kind of promises like enrichment and like control of life and like nature and stuff. And I think it also, due to that, we have some unrealistic expectations of like technology and like what life really is, because I feel like the view is so warped due to technology, and like when you take that away and like actually look at the core of like society and like life in general, it's very different than like what it appears to be.
And like as our devices get like smaller and like the process behind them is more complex, it's like we no longer like understand the simple processes they perform. And like in class when we started talking about the car and how like everybody used to be able to know how to like do a simple oil change, or like I don't know, if the car gets stuck and you can't put it in neutral, now like they're making that technology so high tech that simple humans can't even fix it.
Yeah.
Right, and he also brought up the fact that like the amount of like people that have to work on these cars, like it's not like it's
like
engineers, and it's like putting in like the computer programs into the car. It's not the people who used to make the cars anymore, because they're not that basic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like the question talks about being able to successfully navigate life, that kind of like, what's the word, degresses us?
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah. So we really can't be able to do that anymore if we need an engineer to do it for us.
Yeah,
Right.
the technology makes it so much, it like looks simpler and easier for us, but when it comes to fixing it, it's 10 times harder and impossible.
It probably
Right.
costs more too, which is also another issue.
Like technology is developed into a style of life for people, so we can't live without it.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
So the book also like explores like the limitations of like conventional ways of thinking about technology and its social context. So like both liberal, like democratic ideals and like Marxist lines of thought, concluding with a call for like the reform of technology and like also like the device paradigm. Like when he talks about focal things and like practices.
Yeah.
And here I think I'm gonna have to crop this.
On page 76, we talked about it in class, it talks about the stance for the whole, and it talks about the irony of technology when liberation by way of discernment yields to disengagement. So the distraction of technology kind of disengages us from what we're focused on. So say like in the workplace we had to finish something, we might be, like you could have like the news on like the TV or something, and that would totally like distract you from what like your focal point is.
Yeah, like in one of my reading responses, I said the effect technology has on the working society and labor process has like massively improved companies financially and systematically, which like makes you wonder what's gonna happen when technology advances so fast that your jobs are no longer needed and technology can do it for cheaper and faster.
Yeah. There's also like, I think Borgman's point of view on this is almost that he mentions like a couple times how like technology is advancing at such a fast rate, but us like as humans have kind of plateaued in like how we act like with other people or even digress because we don't know how to hold a conversation. But I think there's like the idea that at some point technology is gonna like almost overcome us. It's like it's gonna outgrow us, and just like I think that's why there's such a fear that it's gonna be a more powerful source than like humans.
Yeah, it kind of like already has, like going back to the car example, like
Yeah.
we no longer can understand it.
We could kind of talk about like the tetrad in that too,
Yeah.
because like how you said, it starts off like something super simple and now it's compared to something we can't even do ourselves.
So our tetrad, should we do that?
Yeah.
We said it enhances communication in like a general sense. It retrieves leisure of face-to-face communication. It reverses or loses letters and like messengers, and obsolesces face-to-face communication also.
So pretty much just saying communication went from super simple like mailman, you know, to now it's like communicating through our phones or FaceTime or something that's not, like it doesn't take as long to do. Like I could call you right now.
Right.
It'd be quicker than
Instead
sending
of
a letter.
sending a
Yeah.
letter,
Another thing that it kind of reverses is like Borgman talks about like focal things and practices, which are like leisure projects. So like we become so like engrossed in technology that we no longer like do things that do not involve technology as like a way to relax. Like I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but actually I used to like drawing like coloring books and stuff whenever I was bored and little, but like nowadays I'll go on my phone and do stuff to make me less bored.
Right.
Well, that's what he says in chapter 18 too. So we use technology as leisure instead of interacting with people. So we just interact with our device.
Yeah.
So we take away from basic human communication.
Or even on that note, like with leisure, opposed to like picking up a book and like increasing your knowledge and like vocabulary, we automatically pick up our phones, and that's like, it's become dangerous because it's a much more like mindless activity.
Yeah, you're just scrolling and not really using
You're
your
not
brain.
engaging
Yeah.
whatsoever, right?
A lot of the vocabulary you see on there too, like on Twitter, like that's just a bunch of garbage. It's just, it says like yins and y'all all the time. Like you obviously can't say that in the workplace or anything.
Yeah, he says like in order to experience the fullness of life, we need to restore like our focal things and practices.
He also talks about like the reduction of work in technology, and then like the reason for this reduction is like the division of work according to him. In other words, is the division of one's unified task by skilled craftsmen or people into larger tasks. And then chapter 18 mainly focuses on like how happiness appears to like decline as technological abundance emerges. And then he goes like with the promise of technology. I don't know if you guys remember talking about that. That has also like contained in its promise of more leisure and convenience.
That kind of like reminds me of when Apple like comes out with a new phone and you get it and you're like so excited with it for like a couple days, and then you're bored of it immediately and are waiting for like the next cool thing to come around and like entertain you.
So it just like gives something for people to look forward to, I guess, like every year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Should we go to the second question?
You think we should?
Yeah, I think we're the answer.
Do you want to check the time or no?
was gonna say that.
Maybe we should talk more about it.
So chapter 10 talks about the foreground of technology, and it also involves it in the workplace too. And one quote that I underlined is, "They fail to keep the foreground of our lives in focus. The discussions inevitably drift to the political and economic background." So you could find that anywhere pretty much. Like you could find that on Twitter, Facebook, like pretty much anywhere where you can voice your opinions. Like you're not focused on what you're supposed to be focused on, it'll just drift off.
I think Boardman also focuses, he does bring up the question of whether or not if we were to scale back technology, would that be like helping us or hurting us in the end? Like, would it be a good idea to kind of, like, not that it would probably happen at this point, there's no stopping it, but what would be to happen if we like slowed down the progression? Like, would we get any of those, like, the values back that we used to have, like face-to-face communication, like knowing how to do things for ourselves, or would it be like total and utter chaos because no one can do anything without technology at this point? And I just always thought that was kind of an interesting question, because when we do talk about in class like AI taking over jobs and stuff, like the first thought is to like, okay, like slow down the progression, but like what would happen? Would that be more helpful or like harmful at this point?
I feel like it would force us to like go back to face-to-face communication. And for some people, I feel like that would be like a disaster. Like, I feel like technology and like social media gives people a lot of like social anxiety, and if like social media and technology was like put in the background, I guess it would force people to do that, and I don't know if they would.
Right.
I said in one of my responses, the reform of technology is also questionable due to how far we've come. So at this point, I feel like we all rely on our technology like the same amount.
Yeah.
But if technology stopped progressing like where we're at now, we'd be fine, because it's gotten to the point where we're scared of like what technology can do. So if it stopped where it's at now, we'd be totally fine.
Right. Either way, right now you look back and it's terrifying to think what would we do without the technology.
Yeah.
And you look forward, it's like if this is the rate it's advancing, like
it's scary.
It's scary for the
So,
future.
Like, think about your parents, like what they would do.
Mhm.
Like I don't think it would be utter chaos, because if there's proof that people
live without
fine
it.
without technology. But I feel like for like medical reasons and scientific processes, it would be bad. Like, obviously that would regress, and technology should be continued because of that. But
it's kind of, well, he talked about it in class. He was talking about Andrew Yang like the entire time, and that whole thing. And I think he's right. Like, technology will like take over our jobs for the most part. Like finance and accounting, pretty much. Like, you could have a computer do that for you.
yeah,
Whenever that's something like we should be doing.
what was it called? The great
Decoupling?
yeah, the
Yes.
great decoupling.
Yeah, that.
that was it.
But then again, technology like always isn't going to be right. You know, like it could mess up too,
There
just
is
like
flaws.
yeah, it could mess up too, just like a person. So I really don't think there's a purpose.
Right. Like the amount of times, like just this morning I went to print something for one of my classes because like it needed to be turned in today, and with the web print, like it wouldn't allow it to. So there's always like those flaws that like without like it's the same, almost the same as human error. Like without like an actual person being there, like what would have happened in that case? Like there's nowhere to turn if your technology is failing. Like I think there always will be a somewhat of a need for at least like a few jobs for humans to still be in charge of.
And like we're the ones who program the computers too.
Right.
So it's not necessarily like they're smarter than us. It's just there's like those few few people who are able to program it to be smarter than us.
Yeah.
That's how I think.
And that'll probably be like the only job left.
That's what I
Right.
mean. Like,
Until the technology
Mhm.
becomes so advanced that they know how to program themselves.
Yeah.
Right, that's also
That's
like
even
another thing.
possible.
I was thinking, like, like humans still are the root of all
Mhm.
technology. Like, if you think back to it, like, all technology, like, if you trace it far enough back, it's a human creating it.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not, it's still, like, our doing.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just the majority of us can't.
Yes.
Like, is it like human advancing technology, or is it like technology advancing technology?
Yeah, I think
You
that's
know?
a really good
That
point,
is a really
actually.
good point.
I feel like it's humans who are doing it.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are like the engineers and stuff.
Right.
Thinking of like new ideas to
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
advance it. I feel like we could probably get
Yeah.
to the second one. So I thought hypernormalization was pretty much like so much so much of a part of the system that it's like impossible to see beyond it. It's like technology in a sense relates to hypernormalization in the sense that we become so in tune with our technological world, the real world is like put on a back burner kind of and disregarded.
In relation to the video, I thought it was pretty spot on. Like, the video just contained like actual footage of people protesting and stuff like that. And then it had that video of like those three girls doing the walk. Remember that? That's also relatable. Like,
That's like the
That
big
was-
thing.
yeah, that was like the stupid things I would do when I was like 12.
Right.
So,
When, like, technology was more of like a fun thing
yeah,
to do
it
and
wasn't
not
like
I
relied
do
Our
this
life.
every
It wasn't
day.
our life. It was
Yeah.
like,
just like
Right.
a leisure activity, kind of.
right. When you look back, like, we had like the big iPads and like
Yeah.
iPods before we ever had iPhones, and that was like the coolest new thing to have. But that
Mhm.
was like, those things didn't consume our lives. I
Yeah.
feel like they were like supplements to it. So it's just it was weird to me for me to like see that, because it makes you like look back.
Like you said, like the iPod, that kind of relates to what Borgman would say about like in the book. He said that iPod like takes away like concerts and like the actual interaction of hearing the music, and instead of just putting in your earphones and listening to the song whenever you want, like just takes away the value behind music, I guess.
You could even like listen to like the concerts live through like
Right.
Spotify and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Yeah, they do add like the live version,
It's weird.
like the live album.
yeah,
It's like not.
And nobody even like listens to those.
yeah, nobody
which is-
does.
Which
Yeah.
goes to show like
It doesn't matter to people.
Yeah,
Right. We did have a conversation, I think one day in class, about like, there's a completely different, like, aspects, or like, in real life, concert versus like music on your phone, just the way like your brain even perceives it, it's completely
yeah,
different.
like seeing the actual music being made.
Right.
it also like creates a memory too. Like, you know what I mean? So if you listen to like the song on your phone, like you could think back to like being there, like at the concert. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just get that from listening to like the live album.
Right.
Yeah, you're not gonna be creating new memories if,
Yeah.
if you just listen to a song.
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
So I found that partly like etymology of the film is that over time, like the delusion became a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the fakeness was like accepted by everyone as real. And his name is your Jack. That's how he named it hyper-normalization, because it talks about like how, and it argues like how governments, like technological utopians, like have given up on the complex real world and built a simpler like fake world run by like corporations and kept stable by politicians. Because like, and it like showed like Trump, right? Like it showed videos of Trump. And
Yeah, that was crazy. I
Yeah.
thought like this wasn't. I don't think the video was made like recently.
No.
So I just
No,
wonder
no.
what new things they would like have to say
Yeah,
right.
about Trump and like.
Mm-hmm. It would probably
Whatever
be a
thing.
lot worse now that they're like trying to impeach him and everything. So. But when fake becomes real and all that, like you could do that through your phone too. Like they have those stupid apps. You can like create your own person, like kind of like Sims. You know what I mean? And you like create your own little like life. People spend hours on that, just like doing whatever. So
One thing in the video I thought was really funny, not funny, just like crazy, was how people would like watch, like there used to be TV stores where they would have like TVs in the window that would play movies, and this one guy, she said like didn't have enough money for TV or whatever. He would just stand outside the window like watching the film like over and over and over again, and she would like go back outside and see him still watching it. And that's just like, it's like kind of an example of like what would we do if we didn't have access to that? Like would we go to like the Apple store and like play on the phones all day because we're so like
I think
we
people
need to
will.
have
Yeah.
it?
Because I think little kids do that. Like the littler ones who don't have a phone yet, like those are the only people who ever see the store like playing on the phones, or like younger people.
That's true. And I think almost that example of the guy standing in front of the TV store is almost like, at that point, was like a look into the future, because like without even knowing it, because now like by any means necessary, we are like staring at some type of screen, some type of technology. Like this guy left his home to go stand outside and watch television because that's how bad he wanted, like that's either how bored he was, or like
Needed some technology.
he needed the technology. And that's exactly what we do now. Like when we do go without our phones, it's like you feel either like you're missing something, or like you would literally do anything in the moment to have like something there. So it's like such an urge. So I think that's like however many years ago when this was made, that guy was doing it. It was kind of like, it's almost ironic.
Like one thing I noticed through like the digital detox is like the first thing I noticed is like how much people are on their phones. Like whenever you're not on your phone and you're like walking around, almost every single person you look at is literally like staring at their screen, walking, like almost running into somebody. Just kind of crazy and like almost embarrassing. Like when you look at everybody and all they're doing is looking at their phone, it's like, what even is our world
The
right
biggest
now?
place,
Like,
like the biggest place I noticed it was like elevators.
yes.
Everyone in an elevator is always looking at their phone because like
because it's so awkward.
Yeah.
What I used to say, do stand there and like look at the walls. Like
yeah,
sometimes I'll do that just
Yeah.
because.
everyone in an elevator.
Nobody wants to start a conversation.
Right.
It's too weird.
And when people
It's
do
very
it, it's
awkward.
weird.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know you, like
What can
why are
we
you talking to me?
say?
We're
Yeah.
also gonna be
5
on this
seconds.
elevator for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point?
I feel like also when like we're talking, like if we're talking like face to face and it gets like awkward, I'll just look at my phone because it's so
Mhm.
automatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Did you guys see, there's a new commercial, it's a car commercial, I think it's like, I don't know if it's Toyota, maybe, but it's like a dude walking like across the street, like he's just walking on like a sidewalk, and he's on his phone the whole time, and there's like a mom and her son in a car, and they're backing out of their driveway, and he doesn't see them, so he just keeps
I did see
walking,
that. I know what
and
you're
there's
talking
like the
about.
sensors on the back that stops the car, so
That's how
it's like, that's how that's what it's coming to, that we have
Yeah.
to like,
It's like you have the technology in your phone to distract you, and then you need the technology in your
Yeah.
car not to hit a person.
Right. Everything
Like-
about that commercial is the technology controlling what happens.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no phone in the hand means he would have seen the car. Like
Yeah.
no technology in the car means the car would have hit him. Like it's become like the center of everything.
we have to like counteract our own technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we have to like.
Like you need backup sensors in the car
Yeah.
because people are distracted by their technology. Like that's how it grows. They find issues. Like, I feel like at this point, technology has like fixed almost most of the issues like we've had. Like, you know, when like you're creating technology, you look for, okay, like what needs to be improved, like what needs to be done better. And it's like, okay, like communication, like long distance communication, they created Facebook, and I feel like everything at this point has like technology, there's a solution for everything. And now, like with that, they're literally creating technology to fix issues with technology.
I use that for a point in my detox, pretty much like being distracted. I would like walk to class without using my phone, and I realized like how much people were on their phones. And I always run into people too, just because I'm like clumsy and stuff, but I realize it's because I'm not paying attention. Like,
yeah, I've also noticed I'm a very like non-directional person. Like when I got my license, I couldn't, like, I would have to put so many things into my phone to figure out where I was going.
Same.
Places I've been going my whole life, just because I didn't, like, sitting in the car, I'd be sitting on my phone, so I didn't like look up to see where we were going. And like walking on campus, like if I was walking with a friend, we were going to a class, like I would just be following them, like they know where they're going, like I didn't have to think. And like it was weird to like actually be like seeing things differently almost. Like it's like a very extreme example, like, but it's
Makes sense.
it's like weird. You remember things like more vividly almost, like it's easier to get around that way.
I said about playing music while driving too. I'm always like on Spotify, like switching a song, and I feel like that definitely does distract me too from like just being a bad driver in general. So that like gets rid of my focal point too. Like
One point I remember from class is like what is lost in social and cultural realm because of how our technology functions. Like he said, solitude is the scourge of our age, which like just shows that we're increasingly separate from one another. Which I just feel like everything technology is like meant for, and social media is like to connect you, but in the real world, you're literally separating yourself from the
You're
outside world.
disengaged, right?
That's become hyper normalized.
did you ever notice how like people are like bad at writing now too?
Yeah.
Because like I usually can pick out like what's like grammatically wrong when somebody's texting me, and I feel like texting people has like caused a decrease in like how we can talk or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just with like a bunch of like contractions, like
Emojis.
yeah, emojis too. Like we really don't need those. Like
Right. And I think when he said the question of it becomes difficult to like determine what is actually true, like now, that goes back to like you don't need to go to concerts because you can listen to music. Like there's a substitute for everything, and it's like weird to think back almost to when it was just those realistic like tangible things, and like now there's like everything's in a phone, like it's a replacement.
Something I thought about was Alexa, how she like, you can just say, Alexa, turn off the lights or turn on the lights or whatever, and you don't need to stand up to like turn off
Yeah.
Or you
lights.
like ask somebody else to do it.
Yeah, it's like so.
it's so lazy, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I saw was like people find their meaning by what they can buy now. Like an example in class was like Thanksgiving. Like everyone would like use Thanksgiving as a time to like connect with your family and reflect on like what you're grateful for. And now people have turned it into like stuff that can be marketed and like I don't know. I feel like people nowadays just do it for like the food and like I bet you at most dinner people are on their phones like not
to
really
mention, like
engaging.
Black Friday is literally like 2 hours after Thanksgiving dinner.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I
Me
hate
too.
Black Friday should be the next day. It should not start on Thanksgiving.
I don't even
Yeah, that goes to show like right after you're so thankful and you're grateful, then you just go
what am I
buy
doing?
stuff.
And you turn
like,
right to like materialistic
Yeah,
items for
what's the
happiness.
reason?
Like
that just defeats the whole purpose pretty much of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Right. Like our source of happiness is even like changed because of technology and like what we perceive and like what we.
Oh,
I think it's a little
still recording. We're good. Do you have a charger?
What percent are you on?
Probably 20.
Okay, whenever it hits 10.
Okay, you guys can still keep talking. I'll plug it in.
Okay.
Let me just talk about.
But yeah, basically like even I was saying. Oh my god.
Okay.
Alright.
Your face is like half in it.
I know. Tip it down.
Sorry.
Okay.
That's fine. But basically, I was just saying how, like even our source of happiness has kind of changed due to technology, and this has become like part of the hyper normalization. Like, I think like it sounds dumb almost to say, but like Snapchat text notifications can make you like more excited and give you like that rush of dopamine more than like seeing and talking to someone in person can. So that's like a huge difference, and it never used to.
I think people were like nervous to talk in person. Like say you're like hanging out with a guy for the first time, like people usually get nervous doing that, but if you're texting them for like all day, you could do that.
Yeah.
And then you talk to them in person, and it's like, oh my god, like what am I gonna do? You know?
Right.
Because like when in texting and on your phone, like you have the time to like think of a response, and like if you accidentally say something embarrassing, like you can like think about it and then send something to fix it. But like in person, you're like you have to think on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different.
That kind of relates to the question, like when fake becomes real, like I don't know, you could just make up something, and like the person in real life wouldn't even know that you're lying because they can't tell by like your facial expressions.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so like when fake becomes real, it's like the communication thing. Like I feel like getting a text and like that making you happy is a completely different feeling, and it's almost more artificial than like a feeling in person when you're having like a good conversation, or like you see someone that like, you know, like truly makes you like happy. I feel like that's so much more genuine, in that feeling. Like the Snapchat notification or the text notification lasts for like 2 seconds, and like actually having a good conversation, like you can walk away from that like feeling better. And I think that's like a good example of fake versus real too.
I think it gives you like a good like perspective on the person too. So like knowing that you can communicate in person and not just over the phone probably makes you want to talk to them more.
Right.
On page 93, it kind of goes along with this. Did you already say this? On page 93 or no? I don't think so. But he said like the meaningless of human life and existence is just dependent on the social and cultural bonds now, like not in person, through technology.
Yeah.
And, like a lot of times, if people are depressed, it's because they don't have people to talk to, and like I feel like if they had more like in-person relationships, that would, you know what I mean? It would make their life more meaningful in general.
Right.
Did you?
I was just gonna say, and that kind of goes like, what is like this question, like it becomes hard to determine what is true, like what is the right way, like to be functioning, like what, like the text notification versus the in-person conversation, like which one is like true happiness, because like I feel like at the end of the day that's all like what humans are like searching for. So I think that is a question that needs to be like evaluated.
That's kind of like the definition of technocracy, when technology becomes social and cultural. Like that is our social and cultural lives now.
Right.
it's no longer in person.
Did you see the quote, there are privileged and sacred ways of expressing love? Did you see that? But yeah, I think technology gets rid of the privileged and sacred ways of expressing love. And it talks about like divorces and like abortions and anything that's like negative in communication. Like people really don't want to talk about it in person just because it's like a touchy subject pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember from the video, the one guy that created the computer program that repeats everything that the patient says to them? Yeah. So it's like, you would rather just talk about a touchy subject to a computer because it's just gonna feedback what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's like so stupid. I don't want to hear it from a computer. I'd rather talk to a person about a problem, not a computer.
That's
or even like a
another thing.
therapist. Like
There's almost, me and my friend were talking about this the other day, that when there's like a difficult topic to bring up to someone, it is a cop-out, and it is so much easier to text them and say like, oh, I have an issue with you, blah blah blah, like let's talk about this sensitive topic over text, because in person, like you can't communicate and it's uncomfortable, right?
Like he always talks about in class, like if you have a problem with your roommate, you're not gonna talk to them in person, you're gonna text them.
I feel like it might just be easier to talk about it in person though, but people don't do it. Like you could see their actual reaction to what you have to say. Like they might not like you either, and then you can talk about it. Like,
yeah. It's crazy.
It's like a whole nother society on your phone.
It is. Yeah. Like I only have certain people who I Snapchat. I only have like 5 streaks with people because I really don't care about who else is on there. You know what I mean?
I honestly pay so much attention to my streaks, and it's not even like healthy.
Yeah. I used to be like that, and then.
But I'm slowly like starting to not care.
Yeah.
Unless I talk to you like on an everyday basis, it's not really. I used to have like 35 Snapchat streaks, so me bringing it down to like 5 is impressive. Same thing with my detox. I used to do 5 hours and I got down to 2.
Yeah.
But I thought that was impressive just because, like, I cut back 3 hours. That's like.
But it's still good.
Yeah,
I thought it was impressive.
Isn't that crazy though? Whenever you look at that, because like really, like how many hours in the day are you like awake and doing stuff? Really, like, and then 5 of those hours you're spent on your phone.
Yeah.
Like that just goes to show how much you're missing in real life,
Right.
and like how many probably conversations and in-person interactions you're missing out on, and it's definitely affecting us as a culture and the way we talk to people.
But it has become like so normalized, especially like with people your age. Like we look at our phones, you're like, oh, we had this much screen time, like that's ridiculous. But you compare it to 5 of your friends and it's probably the same or higher. Like it's not. I am like, yeah, you are missing out on a lot, but like then you think about it, it's like, okay, well, if I cut back from my phone, like there's all my friends that are still on their phone, like you still feel isolated. There's still not like a feeling of like togetherness, because like it's the technology, like it's just like how it is at this point.
I know. I looked at my mom's screen time, and she was at the same. She was at like 4 hours and 30 minutes, and she does like. I think we all pretty much are aware of like our surroundings, but like I'll be on my phone while I'm doing something. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much like where all the screen time comes from. Like waiting in between class for like the professor to start talking. Like I'll be on my phone, and that's where all the time adds up. Is from doing that.
Yeah, when like in those seconds you could be like talking to other people.
Yeah, and nobody wants to talk to you when you're on your phone. Like you're busy, so.
Or even like to that degree, it's like when you're having a conversation with someone and they pick up their phone and like you're trying to talk to them, that is like, I mean personally that's like one of the like crappiest feelings, that it's like you can't like the one time like you're not on your phone, like you don't need to be, like you're having a conversation and then you do like feel the need to look at your phone. It's like
so annoying.
Yes.
It's just annoying that
Or when
that's what people do now.
Or when people like put in like their headphones when they're not even listening to anything, just for like to like avoid
I do that.
conversation.
I'll admit it. I do that all the time. If I'm walking to class, sometimes I'll just, or if I'm in the elevator too, I won't be listening to music. I'm just standing there.
Like at work, I saw this guy like out to dinner with this girl with his AirPods in, and I went and like at this bar, this guy had his AirPods in. And it's like,
Yeah, I did. see
why? Oh yeah, I was with you. Yeah. It's like how? Why? Like why do you
Yeah.
feel the need to have this?
Right.
Yeah, because there is music, so why
It's
would
like
you put your
embarrassing.
That is
to like
embarrassing.
avoid
Yes.
conversation?
Like, don't even go out.
Yeah,
But
that's
what
a
is
whole
the
nother
purpose?
side.
Why?
If you're gonna be in your own world,
Yeah.
anyways. Right.
Should we switch to question 3?
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of going off question 2, for question 3, I kind of talked about respect. Like, there's a lack of respect whenever you are on your phone and stuff like that.
I feel like my experience of contemporary life and like people nowadays is like a lot. Like society is being run by like financial systems, and that was talked about
Yeah.
a lot in the documentary. It's just like kind of crazy once you think about it. Another thing was like the world is like an interconnected system, and like I feel like the people in charge of like the financial systems running society like use like abuse the interconnected system by finances. Like I don't know, you're seen as like less than if you're not financially stable and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and that's just contemporary life nowadays.
And also, like, in the book, I can't remember which chapter it is, but it talks about, like, the science of technology and the progress and, like, the advancements that it makes. And rational value determinism helps advance the technology. So,
It kind of relates to Borgman when he was talking about like the scientific view of the world. Like our world is mostly viewed through a scientific standpoint, and we get the validity of things through scientific explanation. And like if someone's saying something's true and it's not proven by science, a lot of people won't believe it. Like religion, some
Yeah.
people don't believe in religion because it's not physically proven.
Yeah, and there is the point to like the we've seen like a decline in like the amount of people who are religious or have the religious values at all, because with more and more technology, there's more and more scientific evidence, and I think it's kind of people are becoming more rooted in technology and science and the realistic aspects, and like kids being born and raised aren't like not necessarily like buying into it, but they don't see a need to like
yeah.
explore it or like have those beliefs like I feel like it used to be like in our grandparents' time it was like a main staple of society, and now technology is almost replacing that.
Yeah. For like communication and technology. Like on Twitter and stuff, everything is really political or like religious and all that stuff, like left or right sided. But to be honest, you really like you don't have to have an opinion on something if you don't want to. And I feel like social media and technology just like makes you like forced to feel a certain way. But like if you don't care about a topic, you don't have to really.
A lot of the times I feel like nowadays it's hard for me to even like form my own opinions on things.
Yeah.
Because I'll like see something and be like, oh yeah, it's kind of true,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll form my opinion. But like if I were to like be given a subject and asked to form an opinion, it would be like impossible for me because I'll like see things from both sides.
Yeah.
And it's also like with that, a lot of the stuff that is making you form your opinions isn't necessarily like the truth, and it's never like a straight fact. It's always like someone's biased opinion.
Yeah.
Like things can be so skewed and warped, like especially with technology. Like you don't know what is like. There's no. I feel like there is no like source for like just straight true facts. Like everything in some way is skewed one way or another. Like it's.
And there's a bunch of like influencers, like Kanye just released an album called Jesus is King. Like that's just like pushing his views on people, which is fine. Like if he wants to do that, like that's his like art, like it's his music.
Right.
But it does influence others.
Yeah. And I think along with like people in like celebrities in places of power, like taking that stand. I forget who the actress is, but at one of like the awards shows, one of the actresses like stood up and gave like her whole speech was about politics, and like what was it, Meryl Streep maybe?
Probably was
yeah
her.
Yeah.
She's like those like big people, celebrities are using their place, like they're straying away from like the entertainment side, which is what they do, and like they're trying to use their platform, like people who like love the movies they're in, like they like trust these people, they feel like they know them, so when they speak on their political views, it's kind of like, oh, like you trust them, like you know that, especially if you haven't formed an opinion and it is a younger audience, it is like kind of pushing them one way or another.
Yeah. And we're supposed to be living in like a democratic society, and a lot of people are like uneducated on that stuff, and they look at somebody like her and they just base their opinion off that, even though they have like no clue. Like I feel like for her, like having that high of like a position, she should have just like took her award and sat down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because especially for something that's viewed by so many people, and then she gets applauded for that. But if she would have just like kept her mouth shut, people would have their own opinions, and I feel like then it would be like, if everybody had their own opinion and didn't follow like a social media like platform, we probably would be living in a better democracy, because it would actually be our own opinions.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And like the people who are doing stuff like that are like rich and powerful and are probably saying some of those things because it benefits them in some way.
It does. They probably get money from it.
Yeah,
Right.
and that makes the people who support them then conform to those ideals, and
Right.
it just like is a cycle, I feel like, of
And it's weird because if you think about it, like it almost sounds degrading, but these people like Meryl Streep, they were hired and given parts in TV shows and movies because you're a good actor or actress, not because you have good political ideas or you know what you're talking about. Like that's not what you were in this place of power for. And like there could be so many people who don't have those opportunities, that like are educated on the topics and know how to formulate ideas and like have good ideas, that don't have this place of power or like this platform to preach it. And it's like there's so much that we're not seeing, and we're only seeing what the media is showing us, which is people who are talented actors and actresses or singers, songwriters, whatever, giving us their opinions on politics.
And their opinions only benefit them. Like that's why they have that opinion. But a lot of people who are like laid back and they don't talk about it too much, like I don't know, like a vote could pass or whatever and it won't benefit them. But then again, they didn't speak up or cast their vote. So
Right.
that's kind of like what his split. I think Borgman has a split view on it, like for technology.
He does.
So like that's like the pro and con, I think. Like you either talk too much about a subject and you influence too many people, or you don't talk enough and then you don't benefit. So
Right. But I do agree with Boardman being kind of split on the powers of technology, and like he agrees it's good to an extent and like bad. He's not really he doesn't like preach about how it's an amazing thing, blah blah blah, and he also doesn't like push on us the idea that it's like dangerous and we're like going down a terrible path.
I mean, I just feel like there's gonna be pros and cons to everything we do advance on, like,
Yeah.
and you can't please everybody with it either. Like, not everybody's gonna like your idea.
And it's just kind of crazy though, because even if people do like realize that technology is becoming like the hypernormalization of like solitude and like less of human interaction, people who make technology are not gonna stop because of that. They're gonna do it because they can make money and it's easier for them and cheaper for them.
Right.
And that's just like contemporary life nowadays. It's all for like money and the ease of things.
Right.
People pretty much like lose like focus on what's actually important. Like, we really don't need all the technology we have. Like the 3D printers, like why do we need those?
I don't know.
Like what is the like who
The things we create with that
Yeah.
in a controlled like technological setting, when they're creating like actually like useful objects, but when they're in our high school art department.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we had them in high school. Like what high schooler needs that? Like you don't.
To save you like if you're doing
Right. Yes.
Like it's just stupid.
50
answer those.
I just wanted to say that in like talking about his name. In like chapters 15 and 16, he basically like determines that like there are like empirical findings on the question of technologies argued for power and politics in society, and he says that technology drives political apathy by virtue of its tendency to create voter satisfaction. So like basically has to do with like how technology influences like even who we vote for, basically.
Yeah. Like they have Twitter polls all the time. This is kind of like insane, but this one girl I follow on Twitter, she made like a Twitter poll and she's like, what should my major be? And she was having like her followers vote
From
for
the
what
future.
yeah, like I do relate, but like
Yeah.
she should just figure it out herself.
Right.
Oh my god. I know, just crazy stuff like that.
That's contemporary life.
Yep.
Okay.